So, let's begin the formal part of the day in the traditional format, which is questions, comments, just as a general roundup to get our systems, fit in the running around department. There's one over here with David, right over here. So make sure your hands go right up above head level, because that way people can see that you're looking for a microphone.
In terms of fractionalization, do you recommend that when we set anchors as, go deeper when I touch you on the shoulder, that we set it temporally? So this anchor will only last while you're here with me?
Sure, you can do that. As a rule, you do want to, of course, put limits on suggestions, especially things like going deeper and stuff like that. The rule you want to have is, if it can be triggered by accident, then sure, you want to put limits on it. However, remember, it's not so much, see, this is where I think that the word anchoring is a problem, because people have ideas about it which I don't think are real. Anchoring is basically a post-hypnotic suggestion. That's why it's a stimulus response coupled with a post-hypnotic suggestion to make it happen more quickly than it should happen, right? So, as hypnotists, what we do is we set the limits up front. Every time I touch you on the shoulder like this, so someone else touches you on the shoulder like this, it'll do nothing, right? So you already have the limit built in, and at that point I don't see any reason to take it off, because you won't be doing that out of just stupid reasons. You'll be doing it because you're doing your work. So at that point I think the limit's already built in. Beyond that, if in doubt, sure, put a limit in. It's better to do that so that they're safe and happy in the world than not. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Who has another? Anyone for any more? Go ahead, David.
I'm bravely stepping forward to ask a question about confusion language.
You guys want to do this one? Go ahead.
I was thinking about it this morning, and I thought I understood it. So look at
Can you see? By the way, can you start? You hear now how he's offering gifts to us as hypnotists, and people do this all the time. So I'm not messing with you.
Right.
What you're saying is I don't know what to say until you open your mouth and say something. In which case, it's like my mind goes, oh, okay, you can go this way, you can go that way, you can go that way, but they all lead to the same place, and you know that place is, don't you? But ask your question before we start.
Thank you. What I can remember.
Feel free to keep yourself out a little bit so you can actually ask the question.
Is the objective in asking the question, we talked about the trance of infinite possibilities. Is the objective in asking the question to ask a question such that when their mind processes it, it takes them to an infinite result set? So,
yes.
Like with the cats, it's
yes.
like what cats don't fear where they aren't, or something, and there's an infinite number of answers to that.
It's not so much the answers that matter. In fact, I don't care what the answer is. The answer is irrelevant. What matters is what happens to the brain. So you could actually end up asking a question that only has one answer or two answers, but if their mind can't process it fully, it'll still search, it'll still jump into this field of infinite possibilities, this, what I call the trance of infinite possibilities, to try and answer it, and that's enough. So it doesn't matter, you don't have to work them out logically in terms of, this answer logically has all these possibilities. If you do that, that's great. But what's more important is, what is the effect it has on the person? And you won't know that ahead of time. You see, you may actually ask a question that should have an infinite number of answers, but they only have one because their mind just thinks that way, right? So it's the impact that matters, not the logic within it. And if you can make it with the logic, it gets even more beautiful, because then you can really mess with people, because they'll say, that doesn't make sense. And you go, oh, yes, it does. Just think about it fully. And they'll go, but, oh. And then you can just see their brains. What they're basically doing is, if you remember we talked about the boundaries within a problem, what they're doing is they're kind of clawing at the boundaries, going, I know there's something there, but I can't quite get to it yet, right? And at some point, it pops, and you can tell, because that's where the emotional thing is, right? So either they're neutral, and you probably saw them being kind of neutral a fair number of times, whereas Adam, no, the other one, that's the one. Adam did it a few times, and where's Dave? There you go. Dave did it a few times as well. Sometimes they'll pop into something which is really positive. You both Adam and Dave did that really elegantly yesterday. And sometimes they'll go into something negative. But it doesn't matter because it's just the starting point for the next cycle. You see, nature works in cycles. It doesn't care. It just keeps going, and eventually it works out anyway. So let's just take a leaf out of nature's book and say, you know, it's not like, you know, one punch, one kill, one phrase, one trance, right? It's just whatever it is, it's just your starting point for the next step. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Good. Next person. Go ahead.
I was just wondering whether David actually managed to high-five a cat last night.
Well, I am wondering about that. Does someone want to pass the microphone? Because I really want to hear this.
We tried extensive places, and thank you, Shay, and many others for calling up places, but everything was closed, but we found a cat shelter that I got directions to, and anyone care to join me for lunch?
You're going to lunchtime today?
To high-five a cat, yes.
That's great. I'm not forcing that. Can someone please, with a video camera, go and film this? Because I have to see it. I really, really do have to see this. Go ahead.
Is there any symbolism or any meaning when he said something about joining him for lunch and the cat? Is
Well, little do you know, but I knew about Dave before he came here. So I've been doing things, okay? Great. Go ahead.
Yesterday with Dave, was that a true regression or mostly revivification that you were doing?
Yesterday, in the early part of yesterday, or no, the day before that?
I'm sorry. What you did with the cats when he was experiencing...
Oh, that was not a regression. That was a purely, I'm looking for resources. So remember we talked about the PCAT formula somewhere? So actually, I'll come over here and show you.
But wasn't he actually reliving the event?
He was reliving one event, so it's a mild kind of revivification. So what we're doing is a true regression, which we'll come on to later today, goes back to the initial event to kind of release everything that comes from that, because that's where like it's like a pearl at its center has a little grit of dirt, which the pearl tries to protect by putting all these things around, or the oyster tries to protect, right? So when you do true revivification, which we'll talk about later today, you go right back to that little speck of dirt, take it out, so the rest can dissolve. What we did yesterday, though, is slightly different. We didn't do a regression-based model, but a resourcing-based model. So rather than going back here, we went back to a point, maybe 2, 3, 4 experiences into the chain or into the present day. So this is the present day right here. Let me stand over there. If this is the present day right here, and this is the first thing that ever happened with cats, I have no idea what it was, but you know, this would be somewhere probably in the age of 2 to 5 years old, I'd imagine. It tends to be the case. We went back here, maybe to last year, last month, something like that, to a specific event. Now we cleared this up, and as we're clearing this thing up, we end up testing, and you saw me doing a lot of testing, right? So we first test this, and he can do this, but he can't do others. So he then starts making the distinction between what he imagines and what's real. How the hell do you know that, right? So we had to have something reality tone. So we started jumping to an imagined real event. Because that's what he has to do. He has to imagine a real event and distinguish between an imagined event and an imagined real event. So then we jumped to other situations, and he was doing that himself, by the way, to test himself out whether this is working or not. Now, some of them didn't work. That's why he said, I hope this works. Because what he's telling us is, this one is cool, right? But this one, I'm not so sure about. That's what he's telling me. Right? So this is where the testing comes in. So you don't accept it when he goes, I hope this works, or I'm almost there, because that's giving him a seed of a little bit of grit still, that could start the whole problem again. It might not, but it might. So I'm not convinced with that. So the next thing we did is we tested it, and we pushed it, and we pushed it, and we pushed it, until he got this one. And then we tried other ones, and then we started going to the future, projecting to other things as well. So now there's enough of these experiences, which is in green. So each test does a new experience, and now we do a couple in the future as well. So when there's enough of these experiences, the unconscious mind now goes ahead and goes, oh, I get it. We can do this with all of them. And it starts doing them all And you saw that when he was processing different experiences, that he was quiet for a while, and it's like, this is not making sense, but whatever. And shortly after that is the point where his critical factor, his doubts, disappeared, right? I didn't actually have to do anything. I don't actually think I did anything to make the critical factor or the doubt segment disappear. He did it for me. All I was doing is clearing up specific instances along the way. Does that make sense? And of course, I'm suspecting that Dave's unconscious, having been frustrated last night, started to do all of these in his dreams, because like, damn it, I can't do what I want to do now, so I'm going to have to... I mean, you heard the difference in this high-fiving cat thing you spoke about today versus yesterday, right? So it's going to keep growing. So what he's doing now, and I hope you don't mind if I talk about you in third person, what he's doing with a solution what his unconscious had originally done with the problem in the first place. So he's going to have as much fun high-fiving cats left, right, and center as he used to be scared of cats before, right? And by the way, don't be too surprised if that starts spreading to other fields as well. So you end up having more fun in areas where you didn't used to think you could. Because why not, right? Does that answer your question? So it's not a regression therapy thing, but sure, we're bouncing back in time a little bit just to get a specific event to work on through. So go ahead.
And ahead of the game a little bit here, but let's say he goes home and he's talking to his friends who know that he's scared to death of cats.
His friends know?
Yeah.
Sure.
He was saying his friends know. So they start saying, well, why on earth were you afraid of cats in the first place? Is that going to drag him back into the...
Well, let's find out. Dave, you know that your friends know about your cat thing, right? And someone will turn around and say, you know, you went to a seminar and like what, in 20 minutes, this lifelong thing disappeared? Come on, you're kidding us. You're bullshitting us, right?
No, they didn't say that.
They wouldn't say that. But what happened if they did?
I think they'd probably be like, have to sign up for this.
Even better. But okay, let's say that one of them, like maybe a mum calls up and goes, "No, young man, I want your fear of cats to be back there." I don't know. Someone does. Someone's going to push you at some point, right? Someone's going to doubt it. So what's going to happen?
I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I don't know how I'm going to feel when I see a cat, but I am open to the possibilities of at least trying.
And this is the perfect answer, because his mind, his consciousness does not know, but I'm looking at his body, his unconscious response. He's smiling, he's lighting up, he's energizing, and actually, the more he's talking about it, the more it lights up, right? So that tells me what I need to know. His mind is open, so he's not got a preconceived notion of what has to happen. Because let's face it, there are times when a cat may physically be present when something else unpleasant happens, and rather than going like, oh, I thought I had this sorted, his mind can turn around and realize it's got nothing to do with the cat, it's got something to do with something else, right? So he needs to have that mental flexibility to have choice. And we're about choices, we're not about limiting choices. Does that make sense? Thank you. Any more for any more? Oh, go ahead.
In the testing phase of this process, analytically, I know the testing, you can only test for what they don't know, not what they do know. Because it's self-fulfilling if you're testing for what they do know. So,
well, that's exactly what you do want. You want testing. Here's the secret to testing, guys. A test is a conditioning cycle. They've conditioned themselves to be afraid of something. So whenever you test and it succeeds, you're conditioning them in the same way they used to condition the problem in the first place. So I'm not entirely sure what you mean in terms of testing for what they don't know, what they do know. What I'm looking for in the test is, can they go to a situation in which they used to feel fear, but now they don't. Now they feel confidence, say, or they feel that silly feeling of high-fiving something, that, you know, with fur. And you do another test. And if that one works again, it becomes, the test is again a conditioning cycle. And you do another one, and another one. So you do a test about the future, you do a test in the past. And each time, even right now, when I asked Dave just now about his friends, that was another test. And his mind gave him a great response, because he said, oh no, my friends are going to be supportive. And then I did another test by pushing him to what's called a recovery strategy, which is, what if it goes wrong? What if someone does push you and doubts it? In other words, takes over the pattern you had. And I got a great answer there. He lights up and goes, I don't know. And that's perfect. right? Because that means he's going to be flexible in the moment to deal with it appropriately, rather than me have to program him with like, you will say this and you will feel this way, and you will have only this option in your life. Because that's no good, really, is it?
Then I take it you're testing, you're going back to almost like the student, if you will, thinking in the test for a student as a teacher. You're basically taking it to the level of where you know that the student has all of the lesson.
Exactly.
You've tested, in other words,
Exactly.
you're testing to find out
Exactly.
there's nothing that they don't know about this now that we can't.
Exactly. In my test phase, when we're doing change, what I'm looking to do is I'm really trying to make it fail in front of me, right? And I do it small at first because I don't want to put too much pressure, but then you start building it up and building it up. Because remember, each test phase makes him stronger, and so the next one can be more of a test, more of a test. So typically, you start off with the original problem that you're working through. So, it was, in Dave's case, it was your friend's apartment with the cats there that you think of taking. And notice how he looks now when he just thinks about that, right? It's no big deal, right? So that was the initial test. Then the next test was, then he actually brought up the next test for me because he had that split consciousness between, I hope this works, I feel like something's working, but there is an area of doubt, right? So we ended up asking about that, and that brought up other situations. In his mind, he's got a difference between something he imagines and something that's quote-unquote real. Not sure how he does that, but he's doing that in some respect. So we pushed on that point. Then, typically what you end up doing is you choose other events. Okay, this event. I ended up going to the future as well, like going to the big theme for him was going to a pet store and petting a cat. Now it's going to a cat shelter because, cats are just cats are avoiding him now. Does that answer your question?
Is it possible, because I experienced that once with a client, that their body language, so their unconscious tells you they're going to be all right, but their critical factor is back again and it says, no, it's not going to work.
Yes.
Is that possible? So you should really look at their
you don't stop
body
it.
language?
You're not done yet.
Okay.
So that's exactly what happened with Dave yesterday, right? His body was pretty much there. There's a little bit of something still there. And that was linked to the idea, the thought of doubt. So if you imagine his body being like a glass of like a liter of water or something, he was like 90 centiliters or whatever the thing is, full of this is working. And on the top, there was a little area of doubt, which was attached to a bad feeling. Because doubts are attached to bad feelings, right? Otherwise, they're not doubts. And you've got to take care of those as well, because what can happen otherwise is you run the risk. It doesn't always happen, but you run the risk that those doubts will worm their way back in again and break up all the good stuff you've done before. That's why the test cycle is, in my opinion, one of the most important things you do. As a rule, the change, can you pass that back to Adam? As a rule, the change happens in, you can do it within 10, 15 minutes, and then you might spend as long as half an hour just testing, right? Does that answer your question?
Quick follow-up question on doing the testing. On the manual, you have a person that's looks like afraid of dogs or something like that, and then a last question is, what if you're actually getting bitten by a dog? So my question is, how deeply to go into a test that may spark something you don't want to spark?
You have to use your judgment at that point.
Okay.
Seriously, some people you'll test harder than others. Others you don't. You just sense what the thing is. If you think, for example, the idea of what if a dog comes up and snaps at you or actually bites you, if you think that may happen, then you want to test for it, because you want to make sure that they're resourceful within that context, right? So that's called a recovery strategy. You want to take them to a point where, especially if there's a possibility that there might be failure, you want to take them to a point where they fail and recover anyway, right? Like, for example, someone who's a smoker, he's feeling free and fantastic, and one day decides he gets really drunk, I don't know, and for some stupid reason he has a cigarette, right? Like, any non-smokers in this room? People who have never smoked, right? Those of you who have never smoked, have you maybe had like one drag of a cigarette or another just because you're curious at some point, right? Does that make you a smoker? You see, but a smoker would think, damn it, I've had a cigarette. It didn't work. But for a non-smoker, it's like, yeah, I had a cigarette. Now I know I'm a non-smoker. Right. So you want to take the smoker to the point where they think like a non-smoker, so that even if they accidentally have a drag of a cigarette, or even smoke one because they were, I don't know, drunk or just made a bad choice, that at the end of it, they don't start identifying as being a smoker again. They go, yeah, it was just a mistake. I'm just carrying on with being a non-smoker after that. Does that kind of make sense to you?
Yeah, so it's all about choices and taking them to the situation that they could potentially be in.
So the idea of like, what if a dog bites you, if that's actually in the manual, that's an extreme example of it. Yeah. I wouldn't, if someone's afraid of dog, I wouldn't normally take them that far. Right. Seriously, because that's it's not necessary. Mm-hmm. I might take them to, seeing a dog that's aggressive and on a leash, or, seeing a dog that looks aggressive, or seeing two dogs fighting. Right. Because you're still having that sense of like, I mean, everyone here has seen dogs fighting, right? It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. At some point in life, you're going to see dogs fighting. Everyone here has had a dog growl at them, right? So chances are they're going to see a dog growling at them. So rather than being just nice, like, oh, look how little, it's a fluffy little chihuahua, oh, it looks great, right? You want to get to the point, which is pretty much likely to happen, where something scary is going to be involved with dogs, going right back to what we talked about before. They may not be under threat, right? Or may be under threat. So it's appropriate to have a spark of fear, get the hell out of that there, right, and then afterwards still be okay with dogs, right? Mm-hmm. So we're not trying to remove the fear of dogs, because that would be really silly when a 400-pound Rottweiler is looking at your legs going, Exactly. So this is the point. We're giving choices, we're not taking choices away. It's like crossing the road. Anyone here afraid of crossing the road? But these cars, they're like fast and they're hard. If they hit you, over, right? Crossing the road really is more dangerous than most things you do in life. But why aren't we afraid? Because we know how to cross a road safely. So there's no need for it. Now, if we cross a road one day and are a little bit silly and like a Ferrari comes speeding up at us, we're going, oh my God, this is a bit faster than I thought. What do? Heartbeat starts speeding up, adrenaline dumps into your body, tunnel vision hits you, legs automatically become like rubber bands, and you jump. At the other end of it, which your heart slows down again, you go, oh my God, that was close, and you forget about it. Why? Because you realize you did something silly, but you don't need to be afraid anymore. It's just, you've gone beyond that. Does that kind of make sense?
Perfectly. Yep.
And if you took all fear away, that'd be really bad. Because then you're going, oh, look, that's a great Ferrari. Not a good idea. So we give people choices to respond appropriately, which is why I'm really kind of happy to hear what Dave is saying. And I actually honestly mean this. He's open to whatever happens, right? So there'll be a time when it's appropriate to, not want to put your hand down there and high-five a cat. It's, for example, in a zoo, when it's really big and hungry, right? So it's appropriate to have that range. Does that kind of answer your question?
Really well, yeah.
Someone over here, go ahead.
That was really an eloquent explanation because it brought home a lot of things. But I wanted to bring up something from yesterday that you said that a lot of us are going to have steam coming out of our ears, and the circles that you drew with where we feel good but we don't consciously understand.
They are, where are they? They're up here somewhere on the wall. Oh, there they are, over there.
Right. So one of the things that, and I think other people may have done this, we were comfortable in our lack of conscious understanding, knowing or maybe having faith in you, what you said, and also resonating back to ourselves and feeling that we felt good. So Dave and myself and Mark and Clifford, a couple of us went out to dinner last night, and some of us stayed up and watched the sunrise almost, it seemed like. But anyway, again, no thinking about this at all. Come in here, sit down, 15, 20 minutes ago, whenever it was, and as you start speaking, I just want to, there's a clarity that has developed that wasn't there yesterday, and there's been no transition to develop that clarity from yesterday to today. And so I'd like to paraphrase what I understand to just make sure that my conscious clarity is, so this TIP that you talk about, it's actually to take them through baby steps, if you will, to first show them that their reality is really just one of many infinite possibilities, and those possibilities, you then take them into more than possibilities, then into probabilities, and then actually create a shift in their reality to achieve the new state
exactly
that we've been trying to get them to.
So the point of the trance of infinite possibilities is not just that they understand intellectually that there's other choices. For example, Dave, if I may ask you, you knew intellectually that there's no real reason to be afraid of cats, right? It wasn't really a big deal. But there's a disconnect between what the intellect knows and what the body feels. So the trance of infinite possibility lets the body catch up with what the mind should already know. And if the mind's the bits in the way that's actually preventing that change from happening, then you get rid of the mind along the same process. And once you're there, then it's just a question of where do you bring them back down? Do you bring them back down in a happy place, or do they come back down in a not so happy place? And you saw what happened when they come down in a sort of halfway house space, which is like mostly good, but not entirely there yet. So you take the not entirely there yet, and you spin that, and you do the same thing with that. It's just basically, think of it as though, you know, we talked about the boundary in the nervous system. It's like you've fragmented it, half of it's gone, and the other half is going, hang on a second, not liking this, quick, put the defenses up, right? So now you take that half, and you break that down, and eventually it just dissolves, and all they feel is that sense of possibilities, which is exactly what you're describing, right? It's a sense of like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel good about finding out, right? Whereas before, he's like, I don't even want to go there. Would that be a fair summary of your transition?
And so the goal is actually to get the same process that caused the problem to start in the first place to start happening in the opposite way to get them back to where they really came from.
So that way, the change becomes as permanent as the problem used to be.
Okay.
Thank you. Someone over here, go ahead.
So I was talking to Dave after class yesterday, briefly. I used to have a fear of cats, and then...
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I used to have a fear of cats.
Okay.
And then my girlfriend had 2 cats. And...
Big motivator, like,
so,
oh, right, I like cats now.
Yeah, so not through hypnosis.
Sure.
But, well, depending on how you define it, I, over time, overcame this to a point where now I adore cats.
Right.
What I'm trying to figure out is the mental process I went through over time to get there. It feels, based on what you were just saying a couple minutes ago, exactly the same as what you were doing with him in hypnosis.
Just over a longer period of time.
And with real challenges instead of ones in my mind.
Because
my perception of it, whether I'm sitting here talking to you or looking at a real cat, internally, subconsciously, it's identical.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is not uncommon. This is how people make changes all the time. Just they don't realize it. You, for example, have the big advantage of having a motivator, which is you're with a girlfriend, and it's like, either see the person I love and have this cat thing going on, or I don't see the person I love and I'm with a cat thing, right? I don't have to have that confrontation. So you now have a massive resource, which is love, and that's starting to blow out shall we say, a medium-sized fear or medium-sized problem, because the resource was way bigger than the cats, right? And so over time, the resource basically starts, you know, eroding the whole thing with cats. At first, you're okay with being in the room, but then your girlfriend says something like, just charms the hell out of you, or does something which we won't mention in public. And, you know, then you get up in that afterglow, and there are the cats, and it's like, oh, right? New associations are building, and they blow out the old associations. So if you want to look at it in that sort of term, that's what we're doing. We're blowing out the old associations and allowing new associations to come on top. What's the new association here? It's the high-fiving of a cat, right? That's all it is. Everyone's saying, like, anyone here have cats? I'd like to have a little video camera at your house when you guys go home and go, I wonder if Dave did this way? Did you get right down to it like this?
I'm laughing at the cat.
The cat's going to go, huh? Go ahead.
I think Rashid's statement also causes every one of us to have to look into ourselves and see where our trance of infinite possibilities is, because you are basically a magnetic vehicle. You have to have the power to draw that out of them, which means that you have to look at yourself. The best place to do it is look at yourself in the mirror every morning and see what trance states or hypnotic states you are in order for me to sit in front of somebody and elicit their energy that's drawn to me, which is all in polarities, and draw that out of them. Means I have to be exactly higher than he is in that state. But unconsciously, and now consciously realize that that is part of our job of what we're here for, in enlightenment, to share and care and enlighten each other.
I totally agree. Now, do you begin to see more layers, more depth into what H plus means? Because that's exactly right. If I don't know that this place of infinite possibility exists, if my mind can't grasp it and hold on to it, I can't do what we did yesterday. I cannot. Trust me, I've tried. Whilst I am there, I can't help but do it. Because all I do is I look at someone, they come up with a statement, and I'm sitting there surrounded by this infinite possibility and going, are you really sure about this? Because from where I'm standing, right, there are so much more options available. For example, look over here. Huh? That's right. Just look over there. Huh? How are you feeling now? Well, kind of good. Exactly. Of course you're feeling kind of good. I knew it because I'm there with you. So yes, this H plus isn't just now, it's now evolving to being more than just, I want to hypnotize and do something positive. It's how do you do it? It's getting to a mental state of like, that really is infinite possibilities available. It's just a question of you cycling through it often enough. It's like you're washing the laundry. You know, the first time you look at your shirt and you go, oh, staying still there, rub it a little bit more. Oh, there you go, it's almost going. Rub it a little bit more. Ah, it's looking pretty good now. We'll do one more round just to be sure. Crystal clear. Thank you very much. Hang it up to dry. Job's a good one. Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I think you're describing what I've known as what is called the 10% rule.
Okay.
That as long as you are 10% closer, or you can always bring somebody 10%.
Yeah.
It's almost like each time you're doing this, you're taking them 10% more because you're already 10%, and they're just following you 10%,
Yeah.
10%, 10%. Pretty soon you're all the way where you want to be.
Yeah. And you're leading the way, guys. Right?
what that H
You're like
plus
the old
actually is,
cavalry.
too.
You're like the old cavalry officer that's in the front of the charge. You've got to lead the charge. Which is why I said to you at the beginning, I think I was going to say 1 or 2, if you're in your issues, if you're allowing your own problems to be triggered, and let's face it, we all have. I have them, you have them, everyone has them, right? But if you allow yourself to have those triggers being fired off, you can't do the work. Because no amount of language, I don't think any amount of language will get you there. Some people, you know, admittedly, there's some people just so ready to change, you just look at them and go, and they change, right? But for the most part, if you want to have consistent, reliable change, then you need to get out of your own stuff. And it's actually quite therapeutic, actually, because you sit there going like, I had a really crap day, but I've got to get rid of all that. And at the end of it, you feel like, I'm pretty good. I'm liking this. This is a good day. So I actually prefer my life on the days I get to do the work than when I don't. I'm a better person when I either teach or actually see a client. I'm a better person because I can't afford the excuses of wallowing in my own self-pity or my own problems, whatever it is. I have to get beyond that because otherwise I can't do what I do. So I'm literally a better person when I do what I do. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? So thank you, by the way, for making me a better person. Anyone else? Everyone good? Well, good.